ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about something that is physique defining for a lot of people, and that is going to be the back, okay? Specifically, I want to go through the mistakes that I was making in my back training, at least up until maybe the last 2 years. And within the last 2 years, I would say I really started to get these things figured out. So back mistakes I was making over 12 to 13-ish years. And I want to tell you these things so that hopefully your back training is better than mine. That's what I want. I just want you to get jacked, okay? Want you to get huge, all right? Now, I would say that my lats are okay, okay? But my upper back, my traps, have always left something to be desired, okay? And they've always just kind of not been good. And traps are one of those things where it's like if somebody has really good traps, it's like their whole physique just looks really good. So today, the Brofessor is here, okay? Class is in session. Please throw in a Zen, crack a monster, and get ready to take some notes because we're going to be talking about back training mistakes that held me back. Mistakes that held me back, okay? And as you can see, I am going shirtless today for today's demonstration. Think of me as the dummy, okay? The physiology dummy that will be helping us in today's lesson. So what are we going to be talking about today? Specifically, we're going to talk about just a couple things. I'm going to be talking about exercise selection. Then I'm going to be talking about a few notes on overall form, just kind of overall back training form. And then I'm going to talk about specifically upper back, specifically lower back. And I have some physiology slides peppered in here. Now, don't be thinking I'm one of these science-based guys just because I'm going to tell you about the anatomy of the upper back. Okay, don't get it twisted. All right, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. Exercise selection. What was I making mistakes with exercise selection? So I've obviously over 15 years of lifting and being in the military, I've deadlifted many, many times. I was never a great deadlifter. I would say that when I graduated high school, I was 125 pounds. When I joined the military, I was 145. Okay, so I've always been kind of a smaller guy, sitting at 195 at the moment. Through my time in the military, I went from like 145 to like 180. Over those years, I deadlifted many, many times, but I never had it like really consistently throughout multiple years, had deadlift in my actual program. Okay, I'm going to move this over slightly. Never really committed to having a really great deadlift up until recently. And I really think that has held back specifically the upper back and my trap development back majorly. Heavy barbell rows have been in my training for quite some time, in the last 3 years. I'm doing a lot of really heavy barbell rows, and I think that's the main reason why my lats are, decent. My lats are okay compared to everything else, but my traps are just kind of not really there. Okay, so some tips on overall form. What about overall form? Okay, it is my opinion that cheat reps are potentially the biggest, definitely one of the biggest drivers for progressive overload and therefore progress. And I think cheat reps are actually the key, just in general. And cheat reps for back exercises, it's going to look like a few things. Rack pulls for deadlift. This is a cheat/ego lift. And then we have ego lifting for rows. And when I say ego lifting for rows, what I'm talking about is when I do my rows, I do a Yates row variation that's a lot more upright, and I try to pull the bar into my gut like that. Okay, so it's kind of more upright, and I'm really pulling in. But my lat engagement is crazy. I really, really feel these when I do heavy rows like that. Like the next day, I feel like I can like hit somebody with my lat. Like just like, bah, just like hit them with my lat. It just Feels incredible. And so what that looks like, the cheat lifting in that sense, or ego lifting, had a lot of people say, well, you're ego lifting your rows. Okay, well, you see how many plates are on there? Yeah. Okay, so they're going to look like crap. When I'm doing them, like my first, throw 2 plates on there. I'm doing 225. One plate, 135 is nice and clean. 225 is nice and clean. And then, beyond there, then things start to get a little nasty, right? There's some body English. Might be, kind of jerking it up a little bit. But I think that is actually how you actually gain weight onto that exercise. I think that if you just sit there and just do low reps, or just do perfect reps, like all you care about is strict perfect form, and you want to really get a good squeeze, and don't do any reps of rows if you can't like sit there and hold it at the top. I think that's going to hold you back. I think that in one training session, I think you can start with good ones and just keep adding weights onto the bar until they get nastier and nastier, and then until they get like really yucky. Because eventually you're going to be at the point, if you do that, where you start your training, like I said, you're doing, you're throwing on a plate, ripping out 20 reps. You're throwing on 2 plates, you're ripping out 20 reps, and then you get up to 3 plates, and like you're doing like 15 or 8 to 15 like really ugly rows. Well, guess what? If you do that for a few weeks, like really ugly rows at 315, then you go back to 225 or 245, and it feels like nothing. It feels easy. It feels light. Whereas, Mr. Science Perfect Form over there is doing 135, and then he's putting 5-pound plates on the end. And now we're doing 145 with Perfect Form. Okay, who's going to have more yeeted, blasted, meaty lats? Okay, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You want to do some science? Ego lift and dirty bulk. That'll do some science for you. A favorite quote I have on here, I think this was Sam Sulek who said this. If you know who said this first, please put it down in the comments. Break form or remain a newborn. Okay, I don't think that I made that up. Pretty sure I'm pretty positive I heard somebody else say it first. And then another kind of overall form mistake I was making. And so here's why I have cheat reps on here. Not doing cheat reps was the mistake I was making for a long time. I was not breaking form for a long time. Okay, I was staying. When I first started lifting, I heard everybody say, like for rows, you want to do rows, you got to lean up and then, lock your shoulders back and hold your shoulders back. And then you're just, you're just rowing like that. Well, if you do that, you're really limiting your range of motion. And it's going to get into why that's terrible for your upper back development, because I never rounded my upper back, never allowed my scapula to protract, which is when your shoulder blades like moves away from the center line of your spine and move forward, kind of move in the forward direction and away from your spine. Why is that important? Okay, because if you look at how the trap is on your body, okay, you have your scapula here, all right, and you can kind of see how it attaches to your shoulder blade there. You got your rhomboid major underneath the trap, but if you look, your trap is way near the base of your skull, all the way down to the bottom of your spine, and the whole trap, it just connects all the way over to your shoulder blade. Okay, that's where this is. So this is your scapula right here. So if you lock your shoulders back when you do rows, like I had been taught for many years, or you don't really like move your shoulder blades forward much, you're not working the main thing that your traps do, which is scapular retraction, pulling your scapula back, okay, and stabilizing. You put massive loads, rounding that upper back, pulling your scapula forward and your shoulder blades forward. Your traps are going to pull them back. So how can you work out your traps if you don't move your shoulder blades forward? And I've done so many rows, or not rows. Yes, I've done so many rows. I've done so many what are those things called? Shrugs. I've done so many shrugs over the years, and I don't know why. I'm going to be honest, I don't know why people tell other people to do shrugs. Look at the lines of pull when you're doing a shrug. Okay, you're working from here, like, like the top, 25%, top 20% of your trap is being worked in a row. It's just not really doing anything, in my opinion. I don't think the rows did anything, or shrugs. I don't think shrugs did anything other than waste my time. Okay, so now we understand protraction and retraction of the shoulder blades is the main function of the traps. Okay, and this is important if we want to work your traps. We need to know what exactly they do. And this is obviously opposed to the latissimus dorsi. If you look at the lat, you can kind of see that it attaches to, I don't know the name of the bone, right? Your upper arm bone, okay? It attaches up here, and it goes from about your mid-spine all the way down. And so all this does is look at your lat. See if your lat here, your lat pulls your arm down just like that. Just like that. So that's going to be any kind of rowing, pulling overhead, doing any sort of, whatever, lat pull downs, pull ups, you get it, stuff like that. But like for me, I was a lat dominant rower. Okay. So I was during rows, chest supported rows or anything like that, I was working mostly with my lat and really not working my traps. So I didn't allow my scapula to protract and retract. This is a major function of the traps. And therefore I wasn't really working my traps. And I didn't effectively load and work the trap muscles. I stayed locked in. Did exercises like shrugs, face pulls, and even cable rows. In my opinion, cable rows are just not really that effective for working the traps. Now, if somebody's like super huge and more advanced, maybe they can. But for me, it just didn't work. It just didn't click. For other people, you might have a fine time doing it. So if it's working for you, please go to town. But like, I want some like big meat chunks. I want big like meaty traps, like Tom Hardy style. So for me, lately, what's been building that? It's been deadlifts. That's been building that, and it's been variable height rack pulls, which is basically just setting a weight that I cannot deadlift in the rack and then just changing my height. So setting plates on the ground to change my height. So I'm changing where the bar is, like relative on my leg, kind of moving it up and down my thigh and doing reps of rack pulls like that. That, bending over, having my shoulders round forward and really pull up on a lot of weight and having to stabilize a heavy load, that has really been working my traps. So let's talk a little bit about lower back. Okay, so what's been happening with my lower back? Basically, I've had a few injuries over the years, as a lot of people are going to have. Military stuff. Your lower. Once you've been in the military for like any amount of time, your lower back is just cooked from any sort of, ruck marches and things that they have you do. So I was very injury avoidant with lower back work, to the point that I basically did nothing that like worked on the flexion of my lower back, because I didn't want to get an injury. And because I stayed so far away from it, I think those muscles got really weak and didn't like build up with the rest of my back muscles, so much to the point where I think it was to my detriment. So actually, I think it became a problem how much I didn't work the lower back. So low back training has to have a location in your training. So for me, low back training looks like even just doing body weight, bent over flexion and extension, where I have another diagram here. If you look to see where the lower back muscles, how they're kind of working, you have these spinous erectors, these spinal erectors, I don't know, whatever. You get it, Okay, the muscles on your back. Okay, they work flexion and the straightening out your lower back. So for me, doing a lot of bent over, body weight, just kind of focusing on only using my lower back muscles has been extremely helpful. Just getting my lower back warmed up for deadlifts or getting them warmed up for squats or rows. And I think that it's actually reduced the amount of pain that I feel post doing those other workouts. So I would say if you're somebody who doesn't want to do anything with your lower back because you're worried about getting an injury, just take it really, really slow. Just do a few reps at a time, body weight only. Just work the muscles a little bit, okay? You got to feel that motion of the ocean, Just get everything working, get some blood in there. Don't go crazy, but just get it working over time because you think you got to have a strong lower back because it carries you basically through everything else. So super important. All right, that was essentially it. Those are the back training mistakes that I was making. Essentially, it was not allowing my upper back to round and really let my shoulder blades become protracted and then work on retracting them. Having a bad exercise selection, doing things like just shrugs, face pulls, and only cable pulls, not doing enough pulling off the floor where I'm actually bent all the way over and my traps really have to work. So those are really the main things. So hopefully that was helpful for you, and see you in the next video. Have a great day.